Hey guys, in today's video I'm going to talk about external call control profile. So external call control profile is a feature that's available in 11.x version of call manager for sure. I think it should be available in 10.x as well, but it is definitely available in 11.x and upcoming versions like 12.x or any later versions. So this external call control profile, what it does, it basically uses a route server to make any decisions whether to route the call or whether to apply any sort of logic in order to route the call, and then provide any additional call treatment for that particular kind of call. To give you an example, right, so let's say in order to block the calls, right, what we have been doing so far, let's talk about incoming call blocking, right? Any malicious caller calling our organization, right? Or let's say if the marketing team is calling our organization and trying to reach out to the employees and disturbing them every now and then with some of the other call, or maybe let's say we are receiving a lot of fake calls, right, from the credit card team and whatnot. Right now we want to block such calls on our organization. Now if you are using a H323 gateway or a SIP gateway, you can block this call on the call manager or on the gateway. But let's say if you're using a MGCP gateway, then you have to block the call on the call manager only. Now if you have to block the call on the call manager, what you have to do is you have to play around with the route call by next hop calling party number and block the call based on the calling party number by filtering out the number of the caller and block the call, right? So it has a lot of complications, right, because you need to include or do some filtering of the CSS and then block the call. It requires a lot of configuration and effort. But now we're using this a route server. This can be simplified. So basically what will happen is whenever you get an incoming call on your extension, right, before the call actually hits the extensions, right, it will basically query the route server. Okay, there is a call from this particular caller ID. Am I supposed to route this call or am I supposed to block this call? Then the route server will respond back to the call manager. Okay, go ahead and route this call. If that's not a malicious caller, or let's say if that's not a call that needs to be blocked, right? In case if the call has to be blocked and that's part of the block list, then route server will say, okay, go ahead and deny this call. So before ringing the extension, the call will be denied. Likewise, let's say in case of an outbound call, your organization, your users in the organization, or let's say employees in the organization, are dialing out some premium numbers. So you might be aware, right, premium numbers are very expensive, and ideally most of the organization, or a few of the organization at least I would say, block such premium calls, right? So now in order to block such calls, there can be you can directly block the calls using the route pattern and use a block the call feature. But you also want to play an announcement to the caller. Let's say whenever they make such calls, you want to play an announcement, okay, this particular call is blocked. So you can use a route server and you can provide a list of the numbers on the calls which needs to be blocked. And the best thing about route server is, let's say if you have multiple clusters, right? So if you want to block the calls inbound or outbound, so what will happen is you have to do, if you're using the typical scenario, you have to do the call blocking on each call manager, right? Whether you are using route call by next hop calling party number, you have to do such configuration in all the call manager. and then apply the block patterns. But if in case if you are using a route server, you can have multiple call manager cluster. Let's say this cluster A, cluster B, and cluster C here, right? All these clusters will be pointing to the route server, and route server can take your decision whether to route the call or block the call. So in that case, right, you have a single place where you can restrict or restrict the callers or the called people, call numbers or calling number for all the clusters, right? You don't have to mess around with so many configuration in all the clusters. So the life becomes simple if you are using a route server. So this route server and the call manager, it uses XACML messages. Now let's see a I have a demo. Like I've created a Linux server, and that particular Linux server is going to be the route server in our environment. So you can also have a Windows server as well as a route server, and then that route server can be used to perform such business logic. So of course it's not plain simple Linux server. Of course you have to play around with some scripting on the Linux server, and that scripting will take care of your routing decisions, right? So let's get started. So I have my ESXi loaded up here, and in this ESXi I'm going to import the virtual machine which I have created. So I'll click on create register VM, and here I'm going to select deploy a virtual machine from an OVF or OVF file, and click on next. And here I'm going to define a name. Let's say the name is call blocking, and then I'm going to import the disk as well as the OVF file which I have created. Click on next, and let it be thin, and click on finish. So this particular import may take at least 2 minutes. So what I'll do is I'll pause the video for now. Once the virtual machine is imported, I'll resume the video. Okay, so the virtual machine is successfully imported, and it is turned on automatically. So let me open this. So this Linux server, you can you can have you can run it as a load balancing server. So you can have two Linux server running as a call blocking, or let's say the ECP route server, right? So, and this Linux box, the good thing about it is like it does not take more than 15 seconds to boot up, right? So let me log in. Okay, so let's see what is if I'm able to ping my gateway. Okay, I'm able to ping the gateway. Let's see what is the configuration of my network. I'll type nmty and then click on edit a connection. Click on edit. Okay, so the network is set up as 172.160.80. So let's try to access this URL and see if I am able to access this. So I have to open port number 8080. So if you look here, right, so 8080 is the main page where you can have if you have multiple customers or multiple clusters, right? So you can define your customers or cluster here, and you can use separate call blocking folders for all your cluster. Either you can use a same folder wherein you define the inbound and outbound call blocking in a text file and block all your cluster calls. Otherwise, if you have separate numbers to be used for each clusters, right? So you can use separate cluster. I'll talk more about it, right? So this is the first page. So in order to verify if the inbound call blocking service and outbound call blocking service is up and running, I'll put it as 8081. So if I put it as 8081, so it says inbound call blocking automation server HTTP service is running up and running. So if this service is up and running, so that means your inbound call blocking service is up, so it is ready to take or block any of your calls. I'll do it for outbound as well. So outbound works on 8082. So if you see, outbound call blocking automation server and HTTP service is up and running. So what are we trying to do here? So any inbound calls, right, that we want to block, we are going to send the call to this particular IP address and this particular port. And for any outbound calls that we want to block, we want to send the call to this particular IP address and this particular port. So notice there is a difference in the port. Though the server IP address is same, the port is different. So for inbound, the port number is 8081, and for the outbound, it's port number 8082. Now, what additional we are taking care of it? So let me open FileZilla here, and then I'll SSH to the server. So if you go to the call blocking, right, in call blocking, you have customer A, cust A and cust B. So if you have multiple tenants, right, where you want to block calls for all your tenants, you can have them segregated based on the folder, right? Tenant 1, tenant 2, tenant 3, like this. Let's say if you do not want to do that, right? If you have a single cluster, or let's say if you have 5 clusters, but the calling number and the called number, whatever are supposed to be blocked, are same for all the clusters, right? So you can create a separate folder called maybe cluster, and in this cluster, what you can do is you can create 2 notepad files, inbound and outbound, and for all your customers, for all your clusters, you are going to send the call to this particular folder. So how would I do that? I'll explain in a bit, right? So at this moment, let's assume that we are having multiple tenants. So I'm going to use customer A and customer B as our example. Now let's say customer A. So in customer A folder, I've created 2 files, inbound and outbound. So this inbound file denotes like all the calls that are supposed to be blocked for the inbound numbers. So whatever numbers you define here, any call coming from that particular number will be blocked. So basically, let me open this. So for example, right, any call coming from 10,000 number will be blocked, right, and 000 number will be blocked. Now what is outbound here? So if you're trying to make this call, let's say this is a premium call, if you're trying to make a call to this number, your call will be blocked, or I would say like it will first play an announcement and then the call will be blocked, right? So this is how it looks like. So now what does customer A and customer B denotes here? So let's get into more detail, right? I'll log into the call manager and show you the configuration. Okay, I go to the call routing, and then I come here, external call control profile, and then here I click on find. So now in find, if you see here right now, I'm using 2 call control profile, inbound call block and outbound call block. Now in case if you have multiple customers, as I said, right, multiple tenants, you can have them segregated based on the tenant folder. So for example, customer CUSTB for one for inbound and one for outbound is for your customer B. Now let's say if you want to have similar for customer A, what you can do is you can use like, let's say customer A here. I'll name this as maybe cust A, inbound call block for customer A, and likewise I'll create another outbound call block for cust B. Okay, now let me rename these as well. So I'll talk what it does. Cust B, okay, I've just renamed them. So sorry, I think one should be cust A actually. Okay, so now 2 inbound cust A, cust B, 2 outbound cust B and cust sorry, I messed up with the naming convention here. It should be customer A here, and this should be customer B. Okay, so now we have to inbound for customer A and customer B, and to outbound for customer A and customer B, right? What we are doing exactly here. So for this particular inbound, right, whatever inbound calls we wanted to block, we are sending the request to HTTP and then IP address of your route server and the inbound service. So if you look, inbound service is running on 8081. So we are basically sending the inbound request to 8081 port number, and for customer A, this customer A is basically going to be this folder. So basically whenever any request that is going to hit this particular external call control profile, it is going to send this request to customer A and inbound text file. So it is going to look into the inbound text file and see if any of the calls are supposed to be blocked, right? Likewise, for outbound, what it is going to do is it is going to send the request to this particular IP address and 8082 port. 8082 port is the port where outbound call service is running. Now it is going to send to customer A. So now if you look, we are in the customer A folder and it is going to use the outbound text file, right? So whatever numbers are defined in the outbound, those calls will be blocked, right? So likewise, you can create multiple services, customer A, customer B, customer C, likewise, or maybe if you have single cluster, so just name it cluster, one for inbound and one for outbound, and let the folder be cluster here. That's it, right? So that will serve your requirement. Now we have done this configuration. Now let's talk a little bit more about. So right now we are using a primary service. So let's say if in case if you want to do a load balancing, right, you can enable the load balancing and define a secondary web service. So in secondary web service, you can run similar Linux server as a backup or as a load balancer, and the request will load balance between two servers. So but make sure whatever block list you have in server A, the same block list is there in server B, so that you have a proper information shared between these two servers. And this is talking about routing request timer, so how much time it should wait for. And then if in case if you're diverting the call for any diversion decision you're taking, right, what CSS you want to use. So let's say for outbound calls, right, what I want to do is any premium number is someone is dialing, I want to divert the call and send it to Unity connection and play a message like, okay, you are trying to dial a number which is not allowed in our organization, please drop this number or do not call this number, thank you, and disconnect the call, right? So we can divert the number to a voice mailbox or maybe call handler, or maybe you can also route the call to the contact center UC6 script wherein it'll play this message and disconnect the call, right? So that particular number, whatever you are going to use, so you're defining here what CSS you're assigning for the diversion number. So whatever number we are going to use, that number should be accessible in this particular CSS, whatever CSS you define here. So I'll talk a little bit more about that. Now next is call treatment on failure. So let's say if there is a failure, let's say the server goes down, how do you want to handle such requests? So let's say if both the servers you have deployed and for some reason on the both the servers are down, you of course do not want to block all the calls, right? Whether they are whether they are part of the block list or not, you want to route the call because you do not want any calls to be impacted. So in such case you can allow calls. If in case you do block calls, right, and if the route server is not accessible, it will block all the calls. It will not allow even a single call if the route server is not available. So I would recommend I would choose this option as allow calls, because when the server is down, I still want to allow the calls. Otherwise, If the server is up, it is going to use the routing decision and route the call. Now let's talk a little bit about the diversion rerouting space. So when the diversion happens, right, when you are making an outbound call and that outbound call is a premium number, so we are diverting that particular number to a specific number. Let me show you what number we are diverting it to. Okay, so I'll show the translation pattern. Okay, so whenever, let's say, outbound call we are trying to make, let's say any premium number. So let's say if a user is turning a premium number from his phone, the call will be sent to the call manager, and call manager, what it will do is it will send the request to the route server and ask, okay, the user is trying to make call to this particular number, is he supposed to make or not? So the route server will send a diversion information, no, he is not supposed to make call. So what you do is you route the call to this particular number. So this is going to be a fixed number in my example. So star hash 25625. So this 25625 means block. If you open the keypad and try 25625, that means block, and 0 is just, I have added it 0, and then again 25625, so which is again a block. So what we are doing is we are whenever the call request comes, right, as I mentioned here, we are using internal CSS. So I have created a translation pattern within internal partition, and this internal partition is accessible by this internal CSS, and I'm going to assign, I have assigned a CSS, that is internal CSS, and I'm sending this call to 10,049, and this 10,049 is going to be a call handler or a voicemail box in your Unity connection that is going to play a message. Okay, if such call comes in, okay, you are not allowed to route this call. Please do not dial this premium numbers, as this is blocked by the organization. Thank you, and it will disconnect the call, right? So this is what exactly I'm doing here. Now let's take an example here. So before I give an example, right, so this inbound block list or outbound block external call control profile has to be associated somewhere. So let's talk about outbound, right? So for example, let's say there is a premium number. Let's see the premium number. Let's assume the premium number is 9999991. This is a premium number, right? And what I'm saying is I've put in all the route patterns will be using external call control profile. So as you know, right, route pattern is used to route the call outside of your call manager. So I'm going to choose outbound call block customer B, for example, right? So in case if you have different route patterns for different customers, so you can choose your outbound external call control profile for your customers accordingly based on your partition and CSS. But let's assume like this is for customer B. So what I've done is outbound call block for customer B. I've chosen this external call control profile. Now after choosing this particular call control profile, so what will happen is whenever I dial this 99991 number, and the call will be sent to the Unity connection, which will play an announcement, okay, this particular call is blocked. So let's see a quick demo here. So I go to the customer B, as I said, like this is for customer B, and I go to the outbound, click on edit. So let's add this number as 999911 and save this file, close it, save. Now what I do is I have 3 phones registered. So from any of these phones I'll dial this number.
Hello, Cisco Unity connection messaging.
I mean, on the Unity connection, I've not created a call handler right? That is the reason why it is playing a generic message. But otherwise, let's say if I remove this 999 and 1, then you will not hear the Unity connection messaging voice. See, the cube is not up because this route pattern is pointed to a cube and the cube is not up. So that is the reason you see the call is not connecting anywhere. But what I wanted to show you is, as soon as I put this number in 99991, what will happen is it will go to the Unity connection, and on Unity connection, of course, you have to configure a call handler where you have to define, okay, this particular number is blocked.
Hello, Cisco Unity connection.
All right. So what technically happens is this user is making a call 10,000. Let's say 10,008 is making a call. The call goes to this call manager, and call manager, it hits this particular route pattern 999 and 1. And then when it hits this route pattern, before the call is actually routed, it sends a call to this particular, it tries to call this external call control profile for customer B, and it sends a request to the route server, and in route server it check for the outbound text file, and for the outbound text file, what it finds, okay, this particular number is present in this outbound text file. Then what a route server does, it sends a diversion back to the call manager, and the diversion is nothing but is going to be this translation pattern. It is going to be static always. So whenever the diversion comes in, it comes in this particular format. Okay, when the diversion comes in from the route server to the call manager routes this call to this particular number, and this number technically calls or dials the Unity connection call handler, which is 10,049. This 10,049 is something you have to configure on the Unity connection as a call handler, wherein you are going to say, okay, you are trying to you have to record a message stating that you are trying to call a premium number. This number is blocked by the organization level. Please do not dial any premium numbers. Thank you for dialing, right? And disconnect the call. So this is how exactly it happens, or it works for the outbound. Now let's test for the inbound, how exactly it works. So I'll open the inbound in customer B. So in customer B, I've already have a number is 10,008. So which means, like, if let's say there is any call coming in from 10,008 to 10,007, the call will be blocked. But where this block has to be applied for the inbound. So inbound can be applied on the directory number itself. So let me show you where exactly you need to apply. So if I open 10,008, right, so it has to be applied on the directory level, where is in this area, external call control profile. So basically all the extensions or numbers within the call manager will be configured with external call control profile as inbound, and you have to select the profile here and save. If in case you do not want to do this, now you might have a translation pattern for within your organization that any calls coming as E164 number, you might be converting it to 5-digit or 4-digit, right? Or you might be having some translation pattern which is trying to do some conversion for your calls. So you can apply this inbound call block on the translation pattern itself. So whenever the call comes in from the gateway to the call manager, whenever it hits this translation pattern, that translation pattern will basically check for your inbound call control profile, and it'll block the call then and there itself. So either you can block it on the directory level itself, or you can block it on the translation pattern. So let's see a demo here. So from 10,007, I'll try to make a call to 10,008, and this call should not be blocked because we are not blocking calls from 10,007, right? Okay, I get a call on 10,008. Now from 10,008, what I'm going to do is I'm going to dial 10,007, and this call should be blocked. So you see here, I'm not sure if the screen you're able to record it, but I see a forbidden message on my system. So it says whenever I'm trying to dial this 10,007, it says forbidden. Now as soon as I remove this particular number from the list and save this, I should be able to make call. Let me quickly dial. Right. So I hope you noticed that, right? I made a call from 10,008 to 10,007. So now I'm able to make call. So this is how exactly, the external call control profile works. So I'm going to play more around with external call control profile and see what else we can do. But at this moment, I've just used it for, call blocking inbound and outbound both. I hope this video is informative for you. Thank you for watching.